Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio. I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. And when I started this show in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women-owned businesses and help women succeed by providing resources and valuable tips from other women and men, small business owners. In each interview, my guests speak openly about their triumphs, the scary times, and tough decisions they had to make along the way. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strengths to achieve success on their own terms. Hi everyone, welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. And I'm really glad to have you join us today. And if you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, for instance, you can also find it on Spotify, on iHeartRadio. It's also on YouTube. So it's on a lot of other podcast platforms. And you can find out about them if you go to womenentrepreneursecrets.com. And you can find out what directories that it's on, and if it's one of your favorite ones, then you can definitely go and subscribe. And also you can find out more about the podcast and posts of interest to women entrepreneurs, also on that site, womenentrepreneursecrets.com. And you can find out more about me and my books if you go to dbaileycoach.com. So I hope that you will do that as well. And also, I always add, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts in particular, if you'd like to leave any feedback or ratings, that would be great. It would help the show to be found by more listeners. So it's really easy. If you are on an Apple device, just scroll down and you can leave your feedback right there. So I hope that you will consider doing that. So we're going to get started with my guest today. And Veronica Romney is a 12-year branding and marketing veteran who believes our aspirations drive our actions. And if we want to help our customers make the best decision for them, we have to align our business efforts with their aspirations. In the past, she's worked with some of the world's most respected brands, including Sprint, Marriott, IMAX, Dr. Weil Vitamin Advisor, and more. And now she's dedicated her work to helping entrepreneurs and small business owners learn how to connect with the customers. She's a founder of MyModernBrand, a branding and marketing education company that helps great people and great companies clarify their brand message, find their unique brand voice, and market themselves authentically. And when she isn't busy wrangling a business and 2 kids, she's an in-demand international Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi speaker with topics including branding, marketing, sales, entrepreneurship, self-education, knowledge, business, and more. So welcome to the show, Veronica. Great to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, I usually ask guests before we get into the topic just to kind of ask a little bit about how you got started in what you're doing. So could you share that with us?
Yeah, I think here's what I believe to be true. I think entrepreneurs breed other entrepreneurs. And so I'm actually the oldest daughter of 2 Cuban immigrant parents who came to this country over 30 years ago, have had their own air conditioning business for 30 plus. And, just watching them growing up really at front row of all of their struggles and triumphs. And I just knew that one day I would have my own business because I saw it in my parents. And then I found that my passion for business really came into the form of marketing, which is a different discipline than other areas of business. Have always loved it, have always loved appealing to somebody's emotion and serving a customer and just all that goes with it. And so after almost a decade of my own corporate experience, I finally cut the net, shoved. And that was 5 years ago. So it's been a crazy journey. I started entrepreneurship 4 months after having my first son. It's not something I recommend for most, but you never know when the call of the entrepreneurship wild will hit you. And that's what it did for me. And I haven't really looked back since.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think a lot of times people end up going in that direction, either because they have had a family that have been entrepreneurs, and maybe they just find that there's that thing that they want to do and they decide they're just going to jump in and kind of just head out from there. So there's a lot of different stories, I think, and ultimately it's really good when people find that thing that's so important to them that they really have to get it out there. But, we really want to talk about our main topic right now, which is, how you can really optimize your opportunity through a crisis that a lot of small business people are going through right now, in particular with the coronavirus. But, really this topic can be suitable to a lot of different situations that have happened, if it's some kind of a national disaster, natural disaster, any kind of crisis that affects the business. I think this will be something that people will get a lot out of whenever they're listening to this podcast. So, Veronica, what are your thoughts about, initially some thoughts that you have around this right now for business owners?
Yeah, I mean, undoubtedly it's a very interesting time in our world. I grew up in South Florida, so having hurricanes every season is just a thing. And so we have the risk of a natural disaster on a yearly basis. And we kind of get immune to it. But to have a pandemic hit every country, every nation, every person, regardless of their situation, regardless of their demographic, is something that I've never experienced in my lifetime. And so I think as a marketer too, where businesses really started to get nervous is, you conduct your business in a feast, very different than how you conduct business in a famine. And overnight, it went from feast to famine. Overnight, everybody went from spending freely to hiding their wallet. And the fears and the aspirations of your customers dramatically changed. And so what I believe to be true is that, people are not rational people. We, as human beings, we're not rational. We are rationalizing creatures. We rationalize our choices. We rationalize our decisions. If we're having a really bad day, we're going to rationalize that watching 2 hours plus of Netflix is just good for our soul, our mind to decompress. We're just going to make those choices and we're going to have justification for those choices. And so I really believe that, what we aspire to is where we ultimately end up aligning our actions. But aspirations are funny because when I say aspirations, it seems very like rainbows, it's the aspiration to have more or to want more in your life. But an aspiration can also be just surviving on less or trying to maintain what you have today. There's a lot of people that aspire to maintain their health and into their older, years. That's still just as worthy of an aspiration as somebody who wants to save money for a bigger house, And so what I've noticed in the marketplace is that, the tone has absolutely shifted. And the companies that were very slow to realize that their customers needed to be served in a different way came off incredibly tone deaf, right? If you had all of these automated emails and social media posts that were queued up, ready to go, and you hadn't gone back to change them and they were being deployed as the world was falling apart, right? We saw a lot of companies struggle with that in the media versus the company that were more heroic and that faced it dead on and they weren't shy about their own concerns as a company, and providing jobs for their employees and things like that. So the first thing I want to mention is that a good business and good marketers, especially the marketing department or the marketing individual of a business, when you're communicating to your customer, you have to communicate to what they want. And you also have to be so aligned with your customer that you know what they want when they start to change what they want. And then that obviously changes the behavior of the business and the marketing efforts too.
That's true. That's really a great point because I think that, especially when you're talking about automatically sending out emails and things like that, it seems that a lot of businesses are on, I guess, the proverbial autopilot.
Yes.
Maybe in this kind of case, that's not always the best thing. So I think just kind of being aware that there has been a shift right now is really, really important. But there are some people who, I guess, at this point think they should be pivoting to something else or chasing something else. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, right now the big buzzword I feel like in the marketplace is the word pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Pivot. Which there's definitely truth to pivoting. There's no question that, let's say you sold something that was 5x the price. That's probably not going to fly today. Like, there's definitely pivoting in the products that you're offering to the marketplace and what the marketplace can afford and the tone in which you're delivering it. There's no question that there needs to be a pivot there. But I think for me, like, the biggest pivot that any one person or department or company or organization can make is a pivot towards authenticity. Mm-hmm. Because to your point, how many things are just on autopilot? How many things are just the machine that's just cranking and cranking? And right now what people want and you can tell they're like desperate for is they're looking for a voice to listen to when they can't see. They're looking for the lighthouse in the storm. They're looking for the individuals that are being authentically themselves and being truthful and being honest. And they're grasping on for dear life. Like, we're having unsung heroes no longer be unsung. And it's really a beautiful thing to see different influencers or thought leaders. Some are, in my opinion, not rising to the occasion, and others are really, really are. Like, they're coming out of, seemingly unknown, and they're really rising to the occasion and providing and pivoting. So for example, that's very theoretical what I just shared. Let me give you an example. Mm-hmm. It's the restaurants that are not serving customers, but they're using their restaurants to make food for the hungry. Mm. It's the musicians that are going on Instagram because all of their concerts have been canceled. That's hundreds of millions of dollars. And now they're using their social media platforms and the Instagram lives or the Facebook groups or whatever to do free concerts. Like, that to me is a pivot. It's a pivot of authenticity. It's a pivot of generosity. It's a pivot to say, we know that you don't have a lot, or even if you're not financially impacted, you are emotionally distressed because maybe someone that you know or that you love is affected by this awful virus. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to love on you without asking for anything in return.
That's a great point. A lot of people are doing those things and they really should be, I guess, saluted or just kind of know that they didn't have to do those things, but they're entertaining people and that's helping to lift people up and make them feel a little better and sharing. And it's really also spreading a lot of goodwill because people will remember that.
And there's a principle of reciprocity, right? Like, we as human beings, like, we innately feel like we have to return a favor. Like, it's just wired in our brains. It's from we were children. If you give me a cookie, I want to repay the debt. It's just this weird thing that our brain mentally calculates just how much we owe someone else. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I've seen a lot of companies, software companies, speaking companies. I've seen a lot of companies offer services or products that have never been offered for free. Mm-hmm. And what they're noticing is instead of having like X amount of people register and give them an email address and they can do sales campaigns for them later. Now you're seeing like 10x, 100x amount of people that are giving them their contact information because they're being so generous and they want to reciprocate the favor by providing a link back to them personally by giving an email address or even a phone number to be texted to. Like, we're seeing online challenges on Facebook, free online challenges, free Facebook groups that are having hundreds of thousands of registrants, all because it's just free content for you. Or we're seeing software companies that are offering their labs or their services or their workshops for free. We're seeing other companies that had in-person events go virtual for like a third or a quarter of the price. Mm-hmm. And instead of like just selling, 10 tickets, they're selling 100 tickets. It's pretty phenomenal because people are genuinely like, they're at home and they're craving, almost like desperate for community and for connection. We're like starving for it. I think everybody's talking about the health crisis from the virus. We're talking about the business and the financial crisis of the virus, but there's also the mental health portion of the virus. And people at our core, like, man is not meant to be alone. And that's very true. People crave connection. They crave community and tribe and belonging. And if you as a business are providing that in this time of famine, kudos to you, because this will absolutely come back to, if not in the immediate future, and like, I believe the short-term future, and even absolutely in the long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And I think that's a great point that you're mentioning, because there's probably a lot of people who don't even think that way or don't realize how important that is. You know, even though a lot of people talk about community and some, you know, they talk about that a lot in terms of business, but, you know, to really believe that and to really share and be authentic about that is a whole different thing.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. And people will pick up on that difference if they feel you're really connecting, you're really saying what you believe, or you're just kind of saying what you think you should be saying
Exactly.
At this point. You know, people are really going to be able to discern that. But, you know, in terms of crisis management, I think, you know, we're talking about the hurricanes and things like that. And the business owner is just kind of left not knowing at this moment what they should be doing. You know, are there certain things they should be looking at first when a crisis hits?
Yeah, I think for me, one of probably the fastest thing that I did was I either waived, like for example, I have like a monthly membership. So every month for $47, you can come and have group coaching with me, and I break down how to do Facebook ads for beginners, how to develop, you know, something operationally that, you know, creates word of mouth on purpose, how this, right? And so normally it's $47 a month. It's already affordable, but considering that everybody desperately needs how-to knowledge to make like revenue within 30 days or less, I offered it for free for like 60 days, right? I just waived it, you know? So one of the first things I did, I looked at my product suite and I'm like, okay, what on my docket can I as a business afford to provide that, you know, doesn't hurt me, but at the same time gives my group, my tribe, my customers, my prospective customers what they need most right now, which is just like quick, winnable, small wins kind of action, right? So that was one of the first things I did. The other thing I did was, in looking at my more expensive products, what I did was I basically, so you want to talk about pivot, but I converted them, or I deconstructed them into something that was more affordable. And that's also because advertising right now is super cheap, which is really interesting. So for example, if you went through like the 2008 financial crisis, like the housing crisis, if you happen to like personally have cash in the bank, you could have picked up a townhouse, a home for so cheap, right? It was the people that had that kind of liquid cash that like ran away with an awesome house, right? But it's it's what we're noticing as marketers. It's the same thing right now. Social media, like if you want to do Facebook ads or Instagram ads or any kind of ads, like they got really, really expensive when everybody was doing really, really well. But then when, you know, disaster struck, everybody bailed. And so now what we're noticing is we're getting the same kind of results, like for cents and dollars. We're not like the kind of cost that we're seeing for advertising. We haven't seen that since like 2008, 2010.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. But again, you don't want to be tone deaf. So what can I give to you either waived, like for free, or I can give to you at a discount, or I can change or convert. So let's say I had a product that was in-person dependent. It was a workshop or a mastermind or an in-person event. Well, that's clearly not the case anymore. So can I make that virtual? Can I digitize the experience? Can I provide it to you for half the price or a third of the price? And then advertise to that with like nothing. Like those were some of the initial conversations I was having with myself. I'm also seeing, so that's an example of a digital marketer, but I also saw like a company, for example, there's a company in my hometown that does like print. So they do the banners and they do like, you know, all those things that restaurants have, signs. They were so quick to start emailing out to their entire email list of like, hey, we also provide signs that are COVID friendly, or we provide decals that you can put on the floor of your store that says keep 6 feet apart. Like they were very quick to realize the need and then adjust their offering to support that need.
Wow.
Do you see
That's really,
Smart.
That's so clever. Yeah. See, it's such a different way of thinking. You have to be open to how can I use what I have now and switch this up to, be there and provide what people are looking for in this moment.
Yeah, cry over spilled milk. Like, just make another bowl of cereal. Like, that truly. And I think a lot of business owners like, put their head in the sand. Like, I'm mourning the vision I had for myself in 2020. Like, it was going to be the best year. And honestly, it's been the crappiest year ever. Like, with the loss of Kobe Bryant and now this coronavirus. Like, it's been devastating to a lot of people,
Yeah. It's been a while. It's been a while. I know. It feels like it's been 10 years since January.
Like, the longest April of my life.
Like, what is this? You're so right. It's really been an emotional roller coaster. It's being a business owner also, you're already on that sense of being on a roller coaster, and then you add this, and then, I'm sure some people are just like, I don't know what to do, and I'm just gonna, whatever they feel they're gonna do because they can't, think about what they should be doing next and how to deal with maybe making that shift or that thing that they could offer instead. But I think that is really an interesting point what that company did, because it shows that they really were thinking quickly.
Yep, very quickly. Mm-hmm. The other thing I want to add to this too is like, I talked about how advertising is super affordable today than it was, 60 days ago. But that's also the truth for people. So like one of the strategies that I adopted too is not only did I search for cheaper, marketing or advertising means or mediums, but I also thought, what can I do for free? And, cause one thing is to create a whole new product out of the air, and that's really daunting. And if it takes you too long, then you've passed the moment. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is also just, being smart and realizing, okay, what's already available to me that maybe would have said no to me before, but now they're not saying no to me. So for example, I'm a speaker. So let's say I had pitched myself to be on certain stages that were very well known and had some really amazing rosters, and I'm not in that same like arena of caliber speaker that like some of these famous names are. And so maybe they would have passed on me before because my name is not famous. Well, now that these events are going digital and the big speakers are not wanting to do it because they're not going to get their huge fees, all of a sudden, maybe what was a no before is now a yes now. And it's the same thing with podcasts. Like, we're on a podcast right now. It's not my podcast, it's your podcast, but I'm talking to your audience. I'm having a conversation with you, right? But I would consider this an other people's stages. Like, you have a stage, an online forum, and I get to speak life into your group, and I get to speak life into your audience, and I get to share that with my audience, and we get to collaborate that and like share with each other's audiences the value that we're providing together by having this moment, right? It's the same thing with other podcasts. Like, you pitching yourself to a podcast or to a digital stage or to a Facebook group guest or whatever is basically free press. It's free mediums, and you don't have to create the wheel from scratch because people already have these things. So if you've been discouraged in the past by not getting attention, there's a good chance now you might get some attention because everybody's at home. The only thing they have to give you is attention. You know what I mean?
Yes. That's a really, really good point, because you have to look at what do we have that we can use right now to reach people. And, some people are picking up on it right away and realizing, maybe I can do an IG live, or IGTV, or I could do this. It's right in my fingertips. While other people are still trying to see how they could fit what they used to do into this. So I think as more people start to realize, maybe I need to kind of look at this differently, you're probably going to see more people kind of wake up a little bit. But right now, I think it's definitely I guess I could call them early adopters. The ones who are like, okay, I can switch this to this over here, and let me go and do that and reach out to people while you have this audience. As you said, there are people who are kind of looking for this, looking for the information, looking to be entertained, looking to be taught. it's right there. That's such a great point.
Well, we're just seeing online consumption at like an ultimate high, right? Like even Netflix is having a hard time streaming and keeping up because everybody's online. Everybody's on their phone. Everybody's streaming. Everybody's watching video. Everybody's consuming.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've also noticed is they're consuming knowledge too.
Mm-hmm.
So universities are shut down, right? Formal institutions are no longer holding any type of like education, but people, like, by the nature of a human being, we want to progress.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you're seeing a big wave towards too, what I'm very passionate about is self-education. Like we saw that before. We saw that with people going to like LinkedIn and lynda.com and, you know, or Skillshare or these different websites to learn specialties, because I rather learn from somebody who's done it than like a professor who's never done it, but it just that knows the material from a book or from, you know, their studies. And so we're seeing a huge wave of people trying to get specialty, almost like trade information, whether it's like free on YouTube University or they're paying an expert. We're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing that with Masterclass and obviously with Tony Robbins and Graziosi, they're trying to make self-education the new norm. But it's not just the two of them. Like it's a movement where people want to not have to learn in decades what they can learn in 3 days from home.
Again, that's another great point.
Yeah. So you as a business, could you provide that? Like Deborah, for you, like could you provide somebody, you know, a 3-day challenge or a 3-day mini course on how to like start your own podcast? Like people don't know. Could I do a 3-day challenge or a 3-day mini course on how to, you know, brand yourself for beginners or how to do Facebook ads for beginners? Like just really easy things that you could do that you probably take for granted because you're so close to your own knowledge. It's like the curse of knowledge for you. It's so easy that you assume that like, why would anybody want this? But you only have to be one chapter ahead of somebody else to be valuable to them.
That's a great way to put it, actually, because you do forget what you know that everybody doesn't know. Because you're used to doing it. You're like, oh, well, you know, sure they know that. And then you find someone asks you a question, you realize, oh, they really don't know.
No idea.
Yeah. That's a great
Do you know how many people have Googled how to use Zoom? Like, nobody knows how to use Zoom. They're taking it into the bathroom. It's going where it's not supposed to be going. I can't even tell you the things I've seen. I'm scarred permanently. But like legitimately, like, and for me, I take it for granted. I've been using Zoom for years. I'm like, how do people not know this?
I know.
They really don't.
Well, I just found out actually that that you can get like backgrounds like from Canva.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that because I don't use a video. So it's like, really? I felt so excited because I learned something.
Yeah. So if you offered like an online course or an online webinar that's like, I will teach women over the age of 45 how to use Zoom, I bet you get like 1,000 people like, do you know what I mean?
Yes, but that's such a great idea. And I think that's such a great point because so many people who are business owners who always want to get out there and get information out there or, you know, digital marketers, whatever, however you want to call it, will kind of overlook things like that because you said, oh, I'm always on this, so I don't see the value. But it's not everybody. That's again, another great point because we kind of forget everybody isn't clued into that because they're doing their own thing and they aren't necessarily online or doing these things, you know. And I know for me, I mean, just before the lockdown happened, actually probably just at that time, I could have spilled coffee on my laptop. You know what happened then. It was the end of that. And I went to Zoom and not Zoom, to YouTube. And they're like, okay, this is what happens when you spill something around the laptop.
Stick it in the bag of rice.
But by the time I saw that, I'd already done the things you weren't supposed to do. So it was like, oh my gosh, I put it aside.
That's what I'm saying. Like we're so close to our own genius, or we take for granted what comes to us with ease that other people really struggle with. Yeah. And it's a curse, you know? And so I try to like hack that for myself in a way because one of my tricks or one of my secrets, so like lean in if you're listening, but one of my secrets, because I realize that I'm 1000% biased and I'm too far removed from the ordinary in my profession at this point, I will go into Facebook groups and I will harvest questions. I will pull questions and I do it on a frequent basis because, like I said, customers and their desires and their aspirations change. And so like what you thought your customer wanted in a Facebook group, maybe what they told you in a Facebook group 6 months ago, and then what they're telling you now is different. And so either you ask the question in the Facebook group community that you're a part of, or you're part of one and you just start finding things. So like I'll go into a Facebook group and do keyword searches. Like I'll search for personal brand or for marketing or for branding or selling. And you're going to see you're going to want to look at the most recent comments to see what people are struggling with. And it's funny because before the pandemic, one of the biggest things that I help especially women entrepreneurs, but almost I want to say mompreneurs, like I see it more with mothers that are entrepreneurs, is this fear, like crippling fear that they're coming off salesy. Like it really, really, really like they do not want to like come off salesy and be that person. And then what I started to notice in recent weeks is now instead of the word salesy, it's I don't want to offend. It's gone up a notch. It's no longer salesy, which is cutesy. It's I don't want to offend my neighbor. I don't want to offend my community. I don't want to offend. And that's a different word with a different meaning. And so if you don't think I took that knowledge and took that and put that in my marketing copy or my Facebook ad copy or whatever, I mean, that would be foolish on my part because good marketing is essentially listening and repeating.
That's true. And I think, again, another important point because a lot, as we were saying in the beginning, there are companies that aren't listening. And they're just putting messages out there and they're not getting it. They're not getting it, or they're just sending out information or putting, some commercials or just almost trying to be too serious or too, well, we know how you feel. It's like, you're like, look, just stop because I've heard that already and you're at a certain point now, maybe emotionally, mentally, you don't want to hear that.
Yeah, and I think we just underestimate the power of communication and we underestimate the power of storytelling. Like it's funny because I didn't realize I was subscribed to so many different like email lists until this pandemic happened because they all decided to email me about the pandemic and I'm like, oh, well, it's unsubscribe. I didn't even know that happened, number one. So that was a digital detox, spring cleaning style. But I remember because I travel a lot as a speaker and I remember almost every airline, as you can imagine, like email me their thoughts and what they're doing to keep their passengers safe with their fogging and whatever else other crap. But what really moved me actually was Delta because their CEO shared the story of how his son was a senior at high school who wasn't going to be able to graduate. And he had another son that was like finishing out college. I don't know the specifics, but it was like a really tender story about his own family and how his family was being impacted. Like the CEO of an airlines was sharing the story of his children and how they were being impacted. And I will never forget that. I'll never forget that somebody at that level with that much to stress him and all of the people that he has to, keep employed and not go under and not fold and all of the things and all that he did to show relatability, authenticity was just to share a story of his personal life. And so I'm over the people that are having these perfect lives, that are working out every day at home in coronavirus quarantine, that are going to come out of this in better shape than they were. I'm like, get out of my face. Like, it's so bad, right? Like, please, if you're a mother with children at home, you know what I'm talking about. I love my children, but I know. Right? But
oh my God.
A story. If you just show like like I'm laughing because I curled the front pieces of my hair, but the whole back is not curled at all. Like let's be real. Like half the head is done. So that's what I had time for. And that's the part that matters. That's the part that you can see. So like just be real. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I totally get it. I think that's it. And maybe for some people they never really have been, so they don't know how to do that. at all, or definitely with the corporate situation, they may have all these people telling them what they should be doing and how they should do it.
Sure.
You know, they're still not listening to the average, their customer. They're just putting on what they're used to doing, you know, the kind of thing they're used to doing, and not realizing there's been a change and people want that human connection. And I think that's really important actually definitely for the small business owner, right now, who may feel like they've just been kind of, you know, knocked out here, and then they've got their own issues and family and everything else they may be thinking about or concerned about, to kind of understand, that they can be real with their, you know, with their customers, or just
absolutely. People are people, and people do business with people. I don't care how big you get, you're still a human being, and you're still a person, and we can't forget that about each other. I think that's one of the upsides of the COVID-19 situation is I'm in awe of humanity's kindness. I'm in awe of everybody cheering for nurses and doctors and teachers that are going to I could cry, but there's, you know, teachers that are going to children's homes one by one. And I mean, what you see all over social media isn't just bad, you know, it's also really beautiful. Like I said, unsung heroes that should have had their moment a long time ago, do you know? Right.
And a lot of times we take that for granted because we're so busy rushing from one thing to the other. And we don't think about the little things and the small moments. And again, you know, when people think about what could happen, or if people will have lost loved ones, or, you know, then they realize, you know, those times that maybe a lot of us took for granted.
Absolutely.
Where we're so busy, then you go, no, you really have to appreciate those moments and hopefully kind of have that realization, you know, as we all move forward. Veronica, if you could please share with everyone where they can find out more about you.
Oh, sure. So on social media, I'm everywhere, just as V Romney. I love Instagram. That's probably my favorite platform, but it's just V Romney, so you can find me there. And then website-wise, you can always go to MyModernBrand.com, which is MyModernBrand.com. And I'm still offering free group coaching each month. I'm waiving the first 30 days. So if that's something that you're needing as kind of how-to knowledge, like that's my gift right now that I can provide for my community.
So Veronica, what do you see? I know it's hard to tell right now because I feel we're still kind of in the eye of the storm here, but what are some things, or do you have ideas, or you think what changes may come regarding small business, or how we can reach potential customers and how people will be interacting?
Yeah, I think we'll never go back to how it was. And when I say that, is like, I think concerts will come back up, and conferences will come, and everybody will get on planes and travel. But the things that we love will return. But what people are realizing is that you can still conduct business. You can still make a connection. You can still draw a community together virtually. And now you don't have the limitations of travel. Like, I think about, I've been to a couple of virtual events recently, and we were doing a testimonial with a woman who was a mother, and she's like, I wasn't able to even come a couple months ago when I saw this event, but because they made it digital, I could, because I'm stuck at home with my kids, and there was no way I could feasibly come. I'm like, wait a minute, like, how many people have that story? How many people have been in the shadows? Potential customers are in the shadows that we couldn't physically reach them, and now because things are digital, it doesn't matter where you are. The only issue maybe is a time zone difference, but even then, like, you record it and they can replay it later. But I think the pendulum has swung so far that we'll never actually go all the way back to how it was. I think people are going to learn very quickly that they like the digital space, that there's a massive convenience and there's a lot less cost involved. And so I don't think we'll always go back to in-person events. I think it's going to be a combination of in-person events and virtual. So in-person experiences, but also virtual experiences. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was 50-50 in the very near future. Like, we thought we were going to be overrun by like robots in the world, but I think that's coming sooner than we realize, you know? Do you know what I mean though?
Yeah.
So, eye open. With Transformers in my phone.
Oh my God. Yeah, there's always that too. People are like, okay, how's this going to unfold? Where you see where technology is going, but then on the flip side,
world, get used to
yes.
it.
Yes. Yeah. You see how some countries and some companies are using like digital printing.
Oh yeah.
To get, ventilators and things. You're like, wow, this is the kind of thing that could be so beneficial for people, and they can reproduce
absolutely
so many things, and you realize the real values of technology and how it can really be used in so many good ways. And hopefully we can, that's the thing too, to really highlight those things as well, and I hope that we'll do that. But very interesting you were saying about the digital, because I had seen something where the Oscars were saying they were going to consider streaming movies, but before they were like, oh, that you can't do that, you must be in the movie theater. We can't give you an Oscar. It's like, oh, that's changed overnight.
Everything.
Suddenly, it's all different. So you realize, as you're saying, that what was stopping that really before? Maybe tradition, or maybe some people who are used to things.
It's just paradigms. People, don't think it's possible until you're forced into a reality that it is possible. And then everything changes because your eyes have changed. You see the world in a different pair of glasses than you did before, and you can't go backwards. Once you see something in a new way, that's it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you're right.
But I've loved being on, you are so fun. So this was great.
Well, I'm glad that you're enjoying it. And, like I was saying before, I usually do audio because I don't comb my hair or do anything so funny. So listeners, yes, that's it. Veronica's been very nice to have her video, and I'm hiding my hair that needs to be cut. So I'm just going to sit
here. Showed you the back of my head and the front of my head. It's all to see.
I was like, boy, people will come out of this. There's going to be a lot of hairy people. Just
little fur balls. Get back on that wheel.
That'd be interesting. People are going to look very interesting when they come out, and maybe who knows? Maybe some new hairstyles that come out of this, maybe back to like 70s and everything, and we'll have to have everybody have the big hair again because it just made sense. But Veronica, this has been just a fantastic conversation. You've hit on so many important points that I'm sure the business owners are going to get so much out of that they need right now. So, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts to share?
I think we just need to remember again, like I was saying before, people are people. People aspire for more. They chase carrots in their lives, but they also avoid sticks in their life. And I think you just need to make sure that you're always speaking to both. You speak to the carrot and you speak to the stick, helping somebody get their carrot and avoid the stick, and they'll love you forever.
That's great. Perfectly said. So I want to thank you for joining me, Veronica. This has been, of course, wonderfully timely conversation that we're going to need to hear, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it all works out, and hopefully everybody stays safe and just kind of does the best they can. And I think we can definitely get through this. So again, thank you again for joining me.
Hey, thanks guys. Appreciate it.
So, once again, some Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. I want to thank you so much for being here with us, and we will see you again next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. You can also join in the conversation on Facebook.com/Women Entrepreneurs and on the website, WomenEntrepreneurSecrets.com. And don't forget to listen in on dvcoach.podomatic.com and on iTunes.